Welcome back to our show, your show, Let's Talk Stocks. In studio with us this morning is Antonette Richards, and she's Program Director, Civil Registration and Migration at the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Antonette, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to leave out the civil registration.
Yes, we can leave it. For now, yes, we can focus on the migration
because
part.
PIOJ just did a seminar with the World Bank, and well, out of a study that would have been done to present to the populace, that migration and brain drain was thrown somewhere in there is a real problem for Jamaica. Talk to me about that in summary, why you did that.
Okay, sure, no problem. So first, let's step back a bit. So the World Bank, they did a study on high-skill migration in the Caribbean, and they looked at 3 countries. They chose Jamaica, Grenada, and Belize. And those countries were chosen because of, historically, there has been a lot of movement from these countries. And so those findings were presented at a dissemination event recently, along with some recommendations for things for the country to consider. Now, what was interesting about the findings is that, according to the data that they would have collected, about 60% of our high-skilled persons are migrating.
Wow.
So
60%.
60%. So yeah, more than half of our high-skilled persons are migrating. And I know a lot of persons who are listening, your listeners will be saying, yes, brain drain is a problem. And how are we going to stop it? Now, one of the things that we like to say to persons is that migration is a right. Persons have the right to move. You can't stop persons from moving. Some persons will move because they want to, and they want to in the sense that they've always wanted to live somewhere cold. They always wanted to live in Europe. They want to pursue a career that our space, our job market can't absorb. I mean, you want to be an astronaut, you want to study volcanoes. They can't practice that here. So some persons will move for that. Some persons move with the intention to return because they go abroad to study, to do their degree, and while there, they get offered a job upon completion, or they find love, and then they decide to stay with that partner or move to that partner's country. So you have some persons who that happens. And then you have another set of persons who move for economic reasons. So they move because, in their estimation, they can't live the quality, they can't afford the quality of life that they would like here in Jamaica. And so they go elsewhere. And it's a reality that we accept. We know that is the case. We will not, at this current time, be able to pay a nurse what a company or a hospital in the US may be able to pay. Our economy can't afford that right now. So we have to find creative ways of ensuring that as a country, we can meet our needs. We can have enough persons here to ensure our growth and development is not stymied, but then recognizing that there are persons who are going to go. Now, one of the things that the study spoke about was the whole thing of a global skills partnership. They made it as a recommendation. And this global skills partnership, it stemmed from some work that the World Bank has been doing, and currently they're doing something in the Pacific side. So the Pacific Islands, there's a partnership between Pacific Islands and Australia and New Zealand, where persons are trained in some of these Pacific Islands and then they get jobs in Australia and New Zealand. Now, according to the study, it recognized that most of the persons who are leaving and the demand areas are in education, nursing, and, well, healthcare generally, and technology, which is something that does not surprise us because every year we talk about that, the amount of nurses who are leaving, the amount of teachers who are leaving, the amount of doctors and other healthcare professionals who are leaving. But then we also recognize that there is a growing demand for persons in the tech industry because arising from COVID, where there's this whole mushrooming of the tech industry and software and coding and cybersecurity and everything that is going on. That tech is a big thing right now. Now, what the study has recommended for Jamaica to consider is to enter into agreements with some of these partners to see how we can train to fill their markets, but to also train more persons who are available for our local markets. So it would look at ramping up the amount of teachers we are putting out every year, recognizing that a sizable number will go, but then we still have enough to meet our local needs to ensure that our schools have the requisite amount.
Here's the thing, though, and I hear the World Bank and their recommendation. My question to the World Bank, and maybe it's not really you, is have they looked at the root cause of migration? Because our people have always gone, as you said, for various reasons. We've always gone. But the vast majority of people, in my estimation, and I don't have the World Bank kind of money to do the study, but the vast majority of people, I believe, have always gone for opportunity. And if that is the case, wouldn't some partnership to help us to find a way to create more opportunities be something that we should look at? Here.
So, well, that's true. And I think, and you're right, some of this discussion would be for the World Bank in terms of some of the details. But what the study does provide us with, though, as a country and as a government, is the opportunity to look at the issue and to really go deeper, look deeper into it. What, as a country, can we do? So we'll take the information they have gotten and add to that our history and our understanding of how and why migration occurs, our local realities and everything, and then now see how we can put forward a program that will help us to satisfy our needs. So, for example, it did recognize that a lot of persons move for economics because it even looked at how much a nurse would be paid in Jamaica versus how much percent more they will be paid in the US. So it recognizes that yes, that's the thing. But then at the same time, it also looks at how do we also have a population that there's greater skill levels, higher skill levels across the entire population. Because yes, 60% go, 40% remain, but then we still have other data that is saying that we have about 60% of our population that has no certification. So if we are able to increase the amount of persons in our country with certification, then we have a more educated population. We have a population that we can do more with. So we have heard about BPOs, business processing centers.
Before you go there, Antonette, let us look at that exact thing. High-skilled migration, brain drain, versus certification. Because we have the universities. Clearly, the universities are churning out the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, etc. So that's not the area where the mismatch is in terms of having a certified workforce. The area for certification has mainly been, or lack thereof, has mainly been in the skilled sector. And yes, we've had migration among those as well. So I see the need to upskill and certify those. But are we really and truly short of the people who we are training through tertiary?
Are we? So, it's interesting because when you look at the statistics, we have a certain number of persons who are coming out of tertiary institutions annually. And we have persons who get employed and some persons who sometimes end up underemployed. And you will have persons who talk about leaving tertiary institutions and ending up in the BPOs and in other sectors. But so at the same time, as we look at going forward, there may be need to analyze not the fact that you have been trained, but what are the areas that you have been trained in.
What is the need?
What is the need? Based on the demand globally. So we still have persons who may come out, and I'm not knocking anybody's passion or anything, but you may come out with a degree in history or a degree in something else, another subject.
Yeah.
But then it's your passion, yes, but then the demand for that skill is not as great.
Marine biology.
Well, locally may not. Internationally it may be, but in Jamaica's environment it may not. You did one of these programs that looks at like museum studies and archaeology or something like that. That is not something that our local market can absorb, so that person might end up finding themselves teaching in a high school. So we have to look at, are we producing enough tech persons? And I know you spoke about the university versus the skills, but one of the things that we have recognized lately, and we are continuing to recognize, is that even, for example, in the tech areas, cybersecurity and all of those areas, those are areas that don't necessarily require a university degree, but those areas require persons who have done a lot of certification.
No.
So you have persons who are doing multiple certification programs with Microsoft, with Cisco, with a lot of tech industries, and that now makes them employable. So it may not be that, and even our healthcare, it's not just looking at our teacher, or not our nurses, our doctors, those kind of things, but there are other support staff. So for example, one of the areas that came up was just persons who are able to operate some of the equipment in the hospitals. The radiology equipment, just some of the equipment, having those kind of technicians who can operate them, the technicians who can fix them if they go bad. These are not University of the West Indies or University of Technology or any other universities, a bachelor's degree. That is a certificate program. But then that provides a skill that is critical. So you have persons who are now able to offer something that is viable. So if equipment breaks down, we don't have to worry about where we're going to find somebody from. We can call it because there are skills available. So there's still room for increasing our certification. So just looking at the programs that are skill that HEART offers and to see how those programs are facilitating that whole swing in terms of tech, in terms of education, on all of that. We're talking about AI, we're talking about so many things. Are all our programs here enabling us? And as we improve the quality of our workforce, we improve the quality of jobs that we can get. Because if you have a highly trained, highly skilled workforce, even if 60% is leaving, with the amount of person that we still have here, we'll still have enough to interest persons who want to invest in Jamaica, because they will know that I can get the quality workforce I require.
Here's the elephant in the room, Antonette. The study says we're now moved, and I'm putting in the moved, from regular low-level migration. We're now at a point where it's high-skilled migration. We're losing high-level people. And we are now looking, how can we fix that issue? But had they stayed, where would they have been employed?
Well, that one is something that you really don't know. You can't say that this is exactly what would have happened. Some persons would have probably been in the same jobs that they had prior to leaving. Other persons probably would have come and started new businesses. They would have become entrepreneurs. They would have moved away. We can't tell. But then at the same time, we also recognize that based on our size as a country, we can't absorb everyone. We're not going to be able.
There lies the problem. Because if we are to grow, I think the minister says it very well, we can't really grow the country in any real meaningful way by only selling and serving the 3.5 on the rock. We must look outside.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we must look outside, maybe we have to come to a point where we encourage migration.
And that is,
and,
that is
our
good.
migrants, even without any formal setting, have always given us a return.
And
The
that,
remittances
and that
have
is
come back.
exactly where I was going to go next, because the value of the diaspora to Jamaica's development cannot be underscored enough.
May well be better than tourism.
Because, and because of how much we value that diaspora engagement and support for the diaspora, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has actually set up a diaspora policy. So that shows a clear way of how we intend to actually work with and liaise with our diaspora. A lot of persons go, and they go, but when they go, some start businesses abroad. And they start businesses abroad that draw on raw materials and things from home. So they start businesses where they're taking craft materials, food items from persons in Jamaica. So
Yams is a big
exactly. So it provides a market for some of the work that we are doing here. We have, as you said, you have members of the diaspora who give back to schools. You have foundations, you have chapters. A lot of high schools, they have their old boys and old girls chapters in various parts of the U.S. where they raise funds that provide vital resources. We have members in the diaspora who contribute to healthcare. So we value the input of the diaspora. That is why the government some years ago decided to have the biannual diaspora forum, because it gave the diaspora a chance to sit at the table with the government to hear our plans, for them to share their concerns and to see how we can work together. Recently, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs got funding from in one instance through the IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and the other, the Inter-American Development Bank, to launch 2 online portals to facilitate diaspora engagement. One is a Jamaica diaspora engagement platform. It's a web-based platform where you can go online and you get a lot of information. You get information on ways that you can give back to Jamaica. Interestingly enough, the stock market and the social stock exchange is actually there, and there's a link saying to persons, if you're interested in investing in any of these initiatives, you can come here. But we also provide them with information, because we don't want the diaspora to feel like we're only with you for your money and we want to see what we can get from you. But we also provide them with ways. If you want to pay your NHT, here's the link to show you. These are the steps to ensure that you can still make your NHT contributions from abroad if you're interested. You want to get in touch with NIS, here are the steps to do so. We provide links. So we try to provide them with information. We provide information on where the embassies and consulates are based on where you are. There's even a section that facilitates the embassies and consulates putting up information about events and activities they're having, so that it can encourage their participation and know that we're there for them. And the other one, the JA Connect app, it's an app that you download from the Play Store, or through, if you have iPhone, their store, that you can register, and by registering, they can know where you are. Now, I know us as Jamaica, sometimes we don't really like to talk about where we're going or where we live, or we don't want anybody to know. But one of the values of even doing that is that if there's ever an emergency or anything happens, then we can at least know that there's a Jamaican there, especially since we now have Jamaicans going to countries that Jamaicans never used to go to before. I heard about a Jamaican chef in Malta.
Malta.
So when we have Jamaicans going to new places, at least if we're having persons register on this app, then it at least triggers us, so we know the Minister of Foreign Affairs, okay, we have a Jamaican there. If anything happens in Malta, I need to send out something to see if our national is okay. So we have been working. So we value the diaspora. We recognize the diaspora is critical to our development. And so our policies as a country, as people talk about the brain drain, should not be about how to hold people here. We recognize that people are going to go, and we encourage you that when you go and you contribute to the society that you're going to. You go, you follow the law, you do everything, and you be great, basically, where you are. But then at the same time, you can still support development here.
I like that. Why aren't we doing organized training, organized manner, so that we can export services, export labor?
Well,
because I said it under my breath, but when you look at the penetration of remittances versus the penetration of the tourism dollar, there's really no comparison in terms of what it does in the society and the multiplier effect. Why aren't we focusing more rather than concern about whether the brains are going? Why don't we send more so that more can come back to grow the economy in a real way?
And that is something that, and that is what the Global Skill Partnership that has been recommended is all about. So it is now for us as a country to look at the recommendation to see how it can work for us. It's something that we have to take a serious look at. I know that there has been some discussions in the past about it, not at the stage of making it government policy at this point, but just general discussions. And some of the questions that have come up in the past are things like, but how do we ensure that we don't lose everybody? And how do you choose who goes from who doesn't? So there are so many questions that get asked once you start mentioning this that will force us as a country to sit down to look for all the technical persons, to sit to look to gain knowledge. So we have the World Bank team they have a publication. They have said that they're willing to come on board and to help the government of Jamaica to get whatever information it needs through whether speaking to persons who have engaged in such a program before, how it worked for them, so that we as a country, we can work through the how. Because other countries have done it to an extent. Philippines is a country that has done that. They've trained a lot of persons to fill labor shortage areas overseas. So it's something that, as a country, we can consider too. But we just have to work through the program to ensure that the program it meets the needs of the persons who will be getting the labor, but at the same time, we still have enough persons locally to fill our needs, and that it's just make it fit for purpose, basically.
Before we wrap up, because you did mention something about the nature of the migration has changed. So back in the day, a parent, or maybe both parents went, but the barrel came back. And that has shifted a little bit to where everybody is now going.
Yeah. So there's also an interesting element to the whole issue of migration now, where we have some programs that encourage family migration. So you have countries that are now at an advanced stage in their demographic transition. So they have their population is aging. So they are now welcoming families, because by welcoming the family, you have the parents who are able to work now, and you have the children who are going to grow up, and then they are going to become this labor source in the future. So you're ensuring that there's a your economy continues to move so you can facilitate the social programs for your elderly population. So that creates an issue now, because now when mommy or daddy goes and sends back, in the past, when mommy or daddy goes and sends back the money for grandma or auntie or whoever to take care of the children, that is going. So over time, we could see a reduction in remittance at that stage. However, that may not necessarily mean that all hope is lost. Because if we maintain a good relationship with our diaspora, it may not be remittances for family consumption, but it could be investments. So we provide space. So even what the stock market has with the social stock exchange, where persons can go online and invest, avenues, if we create avenues where persons can invest locally, we can still benefit from the resources without it being solely remittance. Because we even have some concerns about remittance, We did a study recently at the PIOJ that looked at remittances. And one of the concerns that we had, in addition to the cost of remittance and some other stuff, was that too much of the remittance was just solely consumption-based. Persons weren't using, we wanted to get to the point where persons would use the remittance to generate income.
So you're talking about like
for example,
building Airbnb.
Thank you. Or something. Or so even when we talk about like the farm work program, and some of the time when the men send the money back home to the women, sometimes it only goes back into sending the children back to school, doing basic things in the house. But if that could be used to buy 50 chickens, or some layers or something, to start something that you can continue to generate some income. So if at some point that remittance stops, you can still survive. Because in the past, it has happened. Sometimes a gentleman goes away, and for a while, he's actively sending back money, but then he finds another girlfriend in the place where he is. He starts another family. All of a sudden, the money stops.
And it dries up.
It dries up. And that woman is
They
still...
give me the wrap-up signal 10 times. But you're going to have to come back. You can't get away. You're going to have to come back, and you're going to have to bring other directors with you. Because, look, we're talking about the economy and business and migration, and it does have an impact. And you have done so much studies. You have all the knowledge up there. We haven't spoken about the knowledge work yet and the technology. And so some people who could stay here while still working over there and earning hard currency, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, and we haven't even spoken about the population dynamics that we also need to consider as we look at our development.
So we're going to have to bring it back.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much for coming and
Thank you for
chatting
having
with us today. Antonette Richards, she's the Program Director for Civil Registration and Migration. And we haven't begun to scratch the surface yet. But as we always say here on Let's Talk Stocks, we give you information to make better financial decisions. Come back with us tomorrow morning at 9. Another insightful program lined up for you.